What's up, everybody? It is the Site B engine worker here, back with episode 13 of our Site B mode series. And keep in mind, guys, this is a part two to the part one of the last episode where we journeyed into BioSynS Valley. We did our species count documents, and as I mentioned to you guys before, I don't want to spend too much time recapping, but we won a court settlement with Biosyn, and Biosyn, we were able to sue Biosyn because, of course, as I mentioned in the last episode, they were um, basically stealing dinosaurs cloned by the company of Engine off of Isla Sorna. They were housing those stolen animals in their own sanctuary, and of course, they were taking dinosaurs off of the mainland that gotten loose off of Nublar after the eruption of Nublar, and they were putting them in their own valley, and they also were doing some cloning of their own. So we were able to win that settlement by bringing up the fact that some of the animals in their valley were stolen off of Sorna, which are animals that were cloned by the company of Engine, and we were able to win that settlement for the simple fact that the guy that they were working with, which is Dennis Nedry back in 1993, if that didn't happen, those deaths that, happened on Isla Nublar back in 1993 wouldn't have happened. So, that's the quick recap. This is part two to part one that took place in episode 12. And, I should also mention again that the next episode, which will be episode 14, will be the last episode of season one before we take, before we take a small break and ready up season two. So anyways, guys, we're going to finish. This will be our last species count in BioSynS Valley. As I mentioned in the last episode, we had to go into BioSynS Valley to get a good count of how many animals. Let's see what's going on here. We have to go into BioSynS Valley to get a count of how many animals they have before we start relocating them over to Isla Sorna. And we ran into a lot of animals in the last episode, such as Quetzalcoatlus, the Giganotosaurus that was cloned by them, um, the Pseudoceratops, the Metrodons, just some of the newly cloned animals that were, of course, cloned by them. And then, of course, we ran into our tiger stripe velociraptors that were stolen off Isla Sorna, and some of their iguanodons, which is, this animal that we're looking at right now, iguanodon. So, anyways, in this episode, we're going to be finishing up that species count. So let's see what we got here. So we actually have another newly cloned animal by BioSyn. So this is a Pyroraptor. Yes, I just wanted to be sure. So this is a Pyroraptor. This is another newly cloned animal by BioSyn, and this Pyroraptor just took off, so we're going to follow it to see where it's going. As I mentioned before, okay, so it seems to be hunting this juvenile iguanodon. But this juvenile iguanodon is protected by his parents. You can see his parents that just kind of that just came to try to fend off the Pyroraptor. This is a male Pyroraptor, and these Pyroraptors will be very great additions to Isla Sorna. But as I mentioned before, guys, because I noticed it happened last episode. I got a little bit too sidetracked. We are supposed to just be getting a quick count of some of these animals. We're not necessarily supposed to be watching them in their natural habitats. But it's hard to, look at these beautiful animals and, of course, not, talk about them in their natural habitats. So anyways, I don't know where that Pyroraptor just took off to, but we're going to see if there are any more Pyroraptors in the area. And we did just come in contact with 3 iguanodons, 1 juvenile. Here's that 1 juvenile and 2 adults. And we have one of those Pyroraptors and a juvenile iguanodon. You can see that Pyroraptor is stalking that iguanodon. Let's see what else we have in the area. And I did forget to mention, unlike Isla Sorna, Biosyn is known to have snowy biomes. Not necessarily all over the valley, but of course, Biosyn Sanctuary is nowhere near as big as Isla Sorna. So that is why this journey is not taking that long. So yeah, we have Pyroraptors all over the area. I want to say we've spotted about 4 so far. I just want to make sure that these guys aren't breeding. We have a dead juvenile iguanodon. So this redder, or I guess you could say this red Pyroraptor here, this is a female, and the more duller ones that we seen earlier, those were the males. So we have one of the iguanodons that we documented, obviously dead now. This is a as I mentioned, the more duller Pyroraptor. This is the male, and as you can see, the crest of feathers above his head is way more prominent compared to the female over here. And my bad, guys, if I seem a little distracted. As I mentioned, I'm so used to our usual format when we're on Isla Sorna during our Site Be Most Serious, and we're documenting the animals. Oh, I thought that was a Pyroraptor hunting the iguanodon. But here, we're here to just document the numbers, not necessarily, talk about these animals in their natural habitats. So I may get a little distracted at times. So as I said, yes, we have about 4 to 5 Pyroraptors in the area. And as I mentioned, I just want to make sure that these guys aren't possibly breeding. As I said in the last episode, this is just the expedition that we're doing with our GoPro cameras, but we are going to do more thorough expeditions afterwards. This is just put it like this is just the expedition that I'm showcasing with all of you guys. But before we start relocating all of these animals over to Isla Sorna, we're going to do more documents, basically. Put it like that. So anyways, let's see what else we could possibly have in this area. As I mentioned, BIOSYNS is nowhere near as big as Isla Sorna, so, venturing through their sanctuary shouldn't take too long, or shouldn't, be too hard or anything like that. And anything we might miss, of course, we're going to double back later on to see, once the cameras are off, we're going to double back later on to see if we came in contact with everything. So right here we have a lone female Parasaurolophus. Beautiful, beautiful animal. As I mentioned before, this is a BIOSYNS clone and a BIOSYNS exclusive Parasaurolophus, and you can tell because of the structure is a little bit different compared to the parasaurs that we have over on Isla Sorna. The head crest is a lot more, I don't know if you would call that a horn or a crest, but the horn is a lot more prominent and a lot more longer as well compared to, the engine clone Parasaurolophus that we have over on Isla Sorna. Strange that there's only one parasaur in the area, though. Usually, I mean, as you guys know, usually our Parasaurolophus, they stay in large, large groups. So anyways, we're going to see what else we can bump into. As I mentioned in the last episode, guys, we seen Big Edie, which is one of the, original cloned Rexes out of the 7 Rexes that was originally cloned in the late 80s for Isla Sorna and BIOSYNS. Okay, guys, so we actually do have a juvenile Pyroraptor. So they are breeding. And as you can see, they are taking refuge in different sectors on BIOSYNS compared to the tiger stripe velociraptors that we've seen in the last episode. And the last episode took place in the mainlands of BIOSYNS Valley. And it's a lot larger than this proximity that we're in. So we have 1 juvenile Pyroraptor, 2 juvenile Pyroraptors, and we have a dead adult iguanodon. So I'm assuming it was probably taken down by a group of the adult Pyroraptors. And of course, they have to do a lot of hunting for these juvenile Pyroraptors. But anyways, as I was saying, BIOSYNS is home to 4 Rexes, that being the Big Edie, the other Rex being Rexy, which was the first Rex cloned by Engine, and of course was one of the main attractions when when Jurassic World was a running theme park from 2005 into 2015, and of course the buck and the doe are also here at BIOSYNS Valley as well. The buck is the large male Rex that got loose in San Diego in 1997, and of course his female mate. So we have 2 more juveniles. So yeah, so it's safe to say these Pyroraptors are definitely thriving, as you guys can clearly see when it comes to breeding. So anyways, that's enough with documenting the Pyroraptors. We've seen a couple iguanodons, and yeah, Pyroraptors. You guys can see they're definitely thriving. We've seen a bunch of iguanodons as well, and I believe we only seen 1 Parasaurolophus. Not sure if we'll run into more, but we'll have to see. So, okay, guys, as you can see here, we have one female Allosaurus, one Nasutoceratops, and one male Allosaurus. And they could be stalking. We have a juvenile Nasutoceratops as well. Okay, and we have another Allosaurus. So, you know, as you guys know, if you've been keeping up with the series, back on Isosorna, Allosauruses are also known to stay in large groups as well. Not necessarily large groups, but they're known to be pack animals. So as you can see here in BioSynS Valley, they seem to be pack animals here as well. And they seem to be staying in close proximity with the Nasutoceratops, probably looking to pick off some of the juveniles. We have 3 adults, 1 juvenile. We have 3 Allosauruses, and that's what you call a predator-prey relationship, where the predators will stay extremely close to the prey. And this appears to be a dead Nasutoceratops, so that's probably why that pack of Allosauruses aren't seeming to really care about the Nasutoceratopses over there, because they already killed one, and I'm assuming it was killed by I'm just assuming it was killed by that pack, that group of Allosauruses, or pack of Allosauruses. So here we have some Stygimolochs as well. Stygimolochs was seen in the mainland of BioSynS Valley in the last episode, so this isn't our first encounter with these guys. And as you guys already know, we do have Stygimolochs over on Isosorna as well, so of course they will just be adding to the population of Stygimolochs, which is of course always a plus, because that's what we're looking forward to on Isosorna, to see the number of our animals always thriving and stuff like that. We're going to see what else we could possibly have in this area. We have some Nasutoceratops along with some Allosauruses. And like I said, you know, BioSyn is not that big. So this proximity, the largest proximity out of the 3 proximities that we have to explore, well, the remaining 2 that we have to explore, the largest out of those 3 was the proximity that we were in during the last episode. So this proximity and the next proximity that we'll go to after this is not really that huge. Okay, so we have some Gallimimuses in the area. We have, you know, Gallimimuses were in the other proximity of BioSyn in the last episode. So that's pretty cool. We have a couple of them here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I might not be counting as I'm narrating, guys. We are going to review this footage back later. You know, the engine team and I, just to make sure we go over every animal that we encounter so we can get our numbers pretty accurate. But yeah, so we have some Gallimimuses in the area, so that is also more food for the Allosauruses. We have another Parasaurolophus, and we have a lone Ankylosaurus. So that's 2 Parasaurolophus spotted in this proximity here on BioSyn. 1 Ankylosaurus. I don't remember correctly if there was an Ankylosaurus in the other part of BioSynS Valley in the last episode, so we'll have to double back at a later date. Well, as I mentioned, you know, after we record these episodes, we're going to do our own thorough checks, you know, looking back at the footage and, of course, doing more physical thorough checks of BioSynS Valley after I'm done showcasing it all with you guys. So we're going to see what else we have. And BioSynS Sanctuary is a huge, huge, huge piece of land. It's just that, like, when you look in the background, not all of this land has their species in it. You know, they have certain sectors of this land picked out where, you know, where they choose to, you know, house certain animals. Unlike us over at Isla Sorna, you know, we try to, you know, Isla Sorna is such a huge island. We try to, you know, let the dinosaurs venture through every part of Isla Sorna. But anyways, we're going to see what else we can encounter in this little area. And, of course, remember to do our counts. So, we do have... Okay, so we have a Rex, and, of course, we also have a Keel. This is a dead Gallimimus. Which Rex is that? So, okay, guys, so this appears to be Rexy. So, Rexy has not been spotted. You know, we already knew that she got loose onto the mainland after Isla Nublar erupted. But she has not been spotted on the mainland for a while, and of course that is because BioSyn has been housing her here. And as you guys know, Rexy is, of course, the first original clone Rex out of the original 7, originally cloned by Engine in the 90s. Hopefully she come out of these trees so we can get a better look at her. And she is here in BIOSYNS Valley with her genetically cloned siblings. Was she doing some fighting? You guys can see her age really showing here. But we seen Big Edie last episode. She appears to be taking a rest right now. And of course, Big Edie is one of her genetically cloned siblings. And not only did we see Big Edie, but we also seen oh wait, no. We haven't seen. What I was going to say is that the doe and the buck are here as well. And as I mentioned to you guys before, the buck was the buck was originally cloned as a female, but of course in a single sex environment, using some of those frog DNA traits, he was able to uh, change sex and eventually turned into a male. So we have Rexy taking off here. I thought a hunt was about to take place, and even though we're not necessarily supposed to be viewing these animals in their natural habitats, I would love to be able to see Rexy maybe hunt something because it'll show us how she'll possibly adapt over at Isla Sorna once we start relocating her and her genetically cloned siblings that's here over in Biosyn. And because she's so up in age, you can see some of these battle scars that she has. You know, it's so beautiful to be looking at, especially since I work with the company of Engine. It's so beautiful to be looking at the first genetically cloned Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Rex that started it all. The Rex that is responsible for any other Rex that was cloned over at Engine and any other Rex that is cloned over, any other Rex that is, over at Isla Sorna. So I don't know if there are any other Rexes in this area. We didn't, even when we spotted Big Edie last episode, she was, really by herself and a little ways away from the Giganotosaurus. So, that just goes to show that Rexes over here in Biosyn Valley are also pretty solitary and don't necessarily like mixing with other large carnivores. And speaking of large carnivores, we did spot the Giganotosaurus in the last Biosyn episode, but I should mention that there is only one Giganotosaurus here in Biosyn's Valley. But when we take a break, and of course, as I mentioned, the last episode will be the last episode of this season. By the time we come back for season 2, Isla Sorna, with all these animals over here in Biosyn's Valley getting relocated to Isla Sorna, by the time season 2 start, excuse me, by the time season 2 start, the ecosystems over on Isla Sorna will look vastly different. So here are the Pyroraptors that we spotted a little bit earlier with some juveniles. There's one of the dead iguanodons that I'm assuming that they took down earlier. And I'm super excited to get these guys over to Isla Sorna to see how they intermix. We have another Pyroraptor that just took down a juvenile iguanodon. I'm not sure if it's... Yeah, she didn't kill it. So we're going to see if she finished the job. We have this juvenile iguanodon running for his life. So as you guys can see, the Pyroraptor is already exhibiting behaviors that our other raptors, showcase over on Isla Sorna in terms of tending to hunt the juveniles off a lot. So as you can see, we have a... And just like that, the male ran right after this juvenile, and this juvenile is dead, and he seems to be feeding on a piece of meat that possibly fell off the juvenile. So anyways, we're going to give this area another quick little thorough check before we move on to the last part, the last little proximity to house animals over in Biosyn's Valley. There are some Microceratoses around, but if we don't run into them, it's not that big of a deal because we are going to be doing another full thorough check at a later date. And the reason why I thought that was worth mentioning is because, Microceratoses are extremely, extremely small animals to spot. So, that's not something we would just run into, even with, our GoPro camera tech. And anyways, guys, I thought that, it'd be cool to mention. I thought it was worth mentioning. I really appreciate the viewers and everybody that has been watching the series and leaving comments. It really means a lot to me. We gained 100+ subscribers in a little over 2 months, or in about 2 months' time. And I appreciate everything in terms of the viewers, even the people that watch but aren't subscribed. I appreciate you guys watching as well. The people that leave likes and comments and etc. This series is only going to continue to get better and better. And I'm glad to be showcasing this journey with you guys because, as I mentioned before, I already knew that we were going to be going over the BIOSYNS Valley and relocating the dinosaurs that are here over the Isla Sorna. And it's only going to make our Site B mode series even better because it will be adding to our already established ecosystems on the island. So anyways, guys, that's about it for this little proximity. We're going to go to our last proximity here over in BIOSYNS Sanctuary, BIOSYNS Valley. We've stumbled across some Pyroraptors, more Iguanodons, more Parasaurolophus, and a lone Ankylosaurus. Of course, Rexy, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I just want to make sure before we get ready to leave this area, because the area that Rexy was in, I feel like we didn't search it as thorough. So we're just going to be sure. Well, I just want to be sure that there isn't anything else that we could possibly be missing out on. Because once we stumbled across Rexy, we kind of got really sidetracked with just talking about her. And I just want to make sure before we move on to the next area here in BIOSYNS Valley. We can hear Rexy roaring now. So yeah, guys, that's probably just about it in this little proximity. As I mentioned, BIOSYNS Valley is nowhere near as huge as Isla Sorna. Well, we have Rexy on the run now. So she appears to be hunting this juvenile. As you can see, she has everything spooked in the area. She appears to be hunting this juvenile Gallimimus. So we definitely came back with good reason. We're going to spot this. Oh, if it goes into the trees, we're probably screwed. This juvenile Gallimimus seems to be running out of stamina here. Oh, man. I don't want to miss this hunt. Okay, Rexy seemed to have lost that juvenile Gallimimus. Oh man, I think she killed it. Yeah, she killed it. Or she probably knocked it unconscious. Yeah, she knocked it unconscious for a little bit. Jeez, that always happens every time we try to get a hunt. It goes into the trees. I don't know if she's aware that she didn't kill it. Okay, now she killed it. I really apologize for that, guys. You know, our GoPro camera was having a hard time keeping up in the midst of all of those trees. But I was happy to see Rexy hunt. As you guys know, she is old. So she probably chose to go after the juvenile because the adult Gallimimus would be a lot harder to hunt. At least I assume, because now she seems to be stalking the adults. Okay, now I'm unaware. She could be just trying to keep this adult out of the area. Okay, so I was completely wrong. So she chose to kill a juvenile and an adult Gallimimus. And the reason being could be because the juvenile might not have been enough food for her. So I think she's going to do very well on Isla Sorna. In terms of her, Big Edie, the buck, and the doe, because they're so up in age, we might not put them on the mainlands of Isla Sorna. We might hold them in captivity. But anyways, guys, we got a little bit distracted, so we're going to get out of this area and head to the next part, which is the last proximity here in BIOSYNS Valley to do our last species document. See you guys soon. Alright, everybody, we are back with our second part. Well, we are back here at the second proximity here in BIOSYNS Valley, where we will be doing our last species documentation. And as you guys know, we literally just ran into Rexy. We've seen a couple of Pyroraptors, some more Iguanodons, some Parasaurolophus, and Ankylosauruses. So, as I mentioned, though BIOSYNS Sanctuary is a huge piece of land, they only really have 3 sectors where they house their animals at, which is why this journey didn't take that long. But here we have another Therizinosaurus. As you guys know, in the first part of this journey into BIOSYNS Valley, we've seen I believe it was two Therizainosauruses. And here's another right here. This is the third one. We have some more Gallimimuses. So as you guys can see, Gallimimuses are definitely thriving all over BioSyn's Valley, which is, definitely a good thing because the merrier for us, basically. Here's another Ankylosaurus. Here's some more Parasaurolophus. And not to rush through this, but as I mentioned before, I don't really want to spend too much time necessarily spectating these dinosaurs in their natural habitats because that's not really what we're here for. We're here to get the numbers of these animals so we can do our roundups and, of course, relocate these animals over to Isla Sorna. So, anyways, though, as I, literally just mentioned not too long ago, this is unfortunately our last little documentation here in BioSyn's Valley. And here's some of those microceratuses that I was talking about a little bit earlier. I wasn't sure if we were going to run into them, but I wasn't necessarily worried about it because we were going to do another thorough check of the entire proximity once the cameras were shut off. And as you can see, they're everywhere. Even in the first part of this biosyn journey, we actually came in contact with the Moros intrepidus, which is, of course, a very, very small species of dinosaur. So, for those smaller species, I'm not necessarily worried about because we'll get the exact accurate numbers of those at a later date. So anyways, I'm really unsure what we could run into now because, these animals could relocate at any given time. And as you guys know, there's a couple of animals on our species list we haven't run into. And just, speaking of species lists, as you guys know, if you watch the first part of this Biosyn series, you guys remember that I mentioned that Biosyn's Valley is home to about 26 species of animals. And we've seen majority of those animals. It's just some specific ones we haven't ran into yet, um, which I'm really hoping that we will run into in this last proximity here at Biosyn. And I'll be happy once we're able to, get back on Isla Sorna anyways, which is, not going to take long because this was a two-part series. And even though, this next episode will be the last episode in our Site B Mode series, it's only going to be the last episode for season 1. And then there will be more exciting things to come once we start dropping season 2's episodes. But anyways, we have some more in the Pseudoceratops. We have about 3 in the area. And is that a juvenile? No, that was a bush. Here's a juvenile. So we have about 4 in the area in total. Wait, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 Pseudoceratops in the area in total. And these guys are going to make very, very great additions once we relocate them over to Isla Sorna. Let's see, what do we have here? Some more. So as you can see, they're literally everywhere, which I'm happy about. Our ceratopsians usually do good in numbers over on Isla Sorna, and it's mainly because of, that they're an armored herbivore. So of course, they'll do good in numbers because they can protect themselves really well. Don't mean that they're invincible, but they're less likely to get picked off by carnivores. So anyways, we're gonna see I did see some animals in the back. So we have our Brachiosauruses, which I am super excited about. Here's a juvenile right here. Of course, they had already told us that they have Brachiosauruses in their valley, but we didn't run into them at the last proximity that we were in, and we didn't run into them in the last episode, which was the first episode in this part 2 series in this Biosyn journey. So we have our Brachies, and as you guys know, these are... Oh, this Brachie appears to have been attacked. So I'm unsure what attacked this Brachie. Hopefully we find out soon enough. Wow, that's unfortunate. And as you guys can see, some of this snow is melting here, so... Okay, hold on. We might... Okay, guys, so this is... Okay, guys, so we have the Buck Rex. So this is the Buck Rex. He was a part of the original 7 Rexes, and he was the Rex that got loose in San Diego back in 1997. So that does mean that he is a older Tyrannosaurus Rex, and we have him on the move now. And as you can see, he's attacking this Brachiosaurus. So he definitely probably was responsible for attacking that other Brachiosaurus. And he just killed this fully grown Brachiosaurus right here, guys. And if I'm not mistaken, I just heard another Tyrannosaurus Rex roar. That could be, yes. So I knew oh, wow. Another Brachiosaurus just got brought down to his feet. So here is the buck's mate, the doe. And if you guys remember, the doe did not get loose onto the mainland in San Diego back in 1997, but she was residing on Isla Sorna, awaiting her mate to come back to her once they had to transport the buck back to Isla Sorna. And as you guys know, they did at the time have a juvenile. The whereabouts of the juvenile right now are unknown. We'll talk about that at a later date. But as you guys know, our Rexes, they do mate for life once paired. So it is a beautiful thing to see the buck and the doe, you know, still together after all of this time. And as I mentioned, you know, Big Edie, the buck, the doe, and Rexy, all of them are very, very special Rexes because is she on the hunt again? So she appears to be on the hunt again, attacking another Brachiosaurus. So it's just like Rexy in the last proximity. Though these guys were bred, genetically cloned all at the same time, and of course they are up in age, as you guys can see, they still can hunt pretty well. Because we just watched the doe take down this Brachiosaurus right here. Then she attempted to take down this Brachiosaurus. And then we just watched the buck, wherever he went. We got to catch back up. Is this the buck right here? So as you guys can see, they're literally waiting at the shoreline, stalking these Brachiosauruses. And, you know, these Rexes, they can swim, but they're not some of the best swimmers. So that's probably why they're awaiting these Brachiosauruses to come back on land. And because, you know, obviously the buck and the doe, and even Big Edie, they spent most of their lives on Isla Sorna, but they have spent the last couple of years here in BIOSYNS Valley. So that gives them the opportunity to be a little bit more patient in terms of hunting. And I say that because there's no other, you know, large carnivores for them to come in direct competition with. So they don't have to always be constantly hunting. And as you guys can see, they're being a little bit threatening to each other. And this is what some of our Rexes do here on, you know, over at Isla Sorna. So this doesn't mean anything. You know, this is a mated pair, and they've been a mated pair for over 25 years. And we're not really supposed to be documenting these guys that much. You know, I'm just so happy to see these guys. And as you can see, they are fighting. Despite them being a mated pair, they are indeed fighting each other. And this is a dominance thing. You know, we see these with our male and female Rexes, even our breeding pairs. But this is just how they socialize with each other, and how they keep their hunting skills sharp. And this is also how the buck here, our male buck, constantly asserts his dominance with the doe, because obviously she's a very large adult Tyrannosaurus Rex, and obviously she's able to assert dominance herself as well. So anyways, we're going to go see what else is in this area. We got a little bit sidetracked. You know, that makes up our roundup for all the Rexes in BIOSYNS Valley, which is of course Big Edie, Rexy herself, and the doe and the buck. And of course we're going to be moving all of those Rexes over to Isla Sorna, along with every other animal that we've come in contact with. And I thought I might also mention, you know, whatever we might not see, because we do have a species count. We do have a species count of animals that are in BIOSYNS Valley. So whatever we haven't come in contact with, guys, you know, I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that once we get back on Isla Sorna. Because, for example, BIOSYNS Valley does have Dilophosaurus in it, yet we haven't come in contact with any Dilophosaurus yet. Which is why I constantly been reiterating, this is the species count or species document for you guys. But once the cameras are off, we're going to be doing our own, another separate species count just to make sure we haven't missed any, any animals. So we're doing another little roundabout. Another little roundup of the area, and pretty soon we can just about get ready to draw this episode to a close. The last episode was almost close to an hour for the simple fact that we have a Quetzalcoatlus. But the last episode was almost close to an hour for the simple fact that it was the start of this journey into BIOSYNS Valley, and we started the episode off in BIOSYNS' largest area that houses its largest amount of animals. So here's our fourth Quetzalcoatlus. We spotted the first three in the first part of our BIOSYN Valley journey in the last episode. So I'm super excited to see how these guys interact with the Thanatos Dragons that are already over on Isla Sorna, and I'm super excited to see how these huge flyers take up their own refuge in their own ecosystem. I'm excited to see where they take refuge at over on Isla Sorna and how they establish their own ecosystems. So anyways, we're going to get ready to draw this little area we're going to get ready to draw this episode to a close pretty soon. Okay, so we have a dead iguanodon, and here's a couple of Dilophosauruses, so we seem to have spoke them up. So the ones with the brighter frills are the males, and yeah, so these two are males, and I'm unsure how many females are in the area. We have 4 males, so they probably have hunted this iguanodon down. So that's good that we finally came in contact with these guys. And we have about, well, here's another iguanodon. So of course I can document that dead iguanodon, but of course it won't be able to be moved over to Isla Sorna since it's dead. So I'm glad we finally came in contact with those Dilophosauruses. Here's another iguanodon sleeping, and here's another juvenile iguanodon. So as you guys can see, just like the Edmontosauruses over on Isla Sorna, iguanodons are definitely thriving here in BIOSYNS Valley, and I'm super excited to get these guys over to Isla Sorna to, of course, see how they establish their own territories and ecosystems over on the island. I'm also glad the snow melted too, because we can get a better look. As you guys can see, we have some more Stygimolochs in the area. For the amount of Stygimolochs that we're coming in contact with, I'm super shocked that we haven't stumbled upon any juveniles or anything like that. But anyways, guys, it's just about time to draw this episode to a close. So to give a quick rundown, this was the conclusion of our Cybe Mode series. The last episode will be the final episode in Season 1. We'll take a small break as we ready up Season 2. I wanted these last couple episodes to be very special, which is why I explained some of the legal troubles we had with BIOSYN and how we were able to win those settlements. And of course, take some of their animals, take our stolen animals, and take any animals that they've cloned in their own timing and bring them over to Isla Sorna, which is going to take a little while, which is why we're mainly going to be taking that small little break as we ready up Season 2. So to just go over some things, we documented about 7 to 8 brachiosauruses. As a matter of fact, let me pull up our species list. It's going to be 1 second. So as far as Rexes go, we came in contact with 4 Rexes: Big Edie, Rexy, the doe, and the buck. We came in contact with 1 Giganotosaurus. We came in contact with about 3 Xenosauruses. As far as oviraptors go, we came in contact with about 2 or 3 in the last episode, but there are definitely more. Came in contact with a bunch of pyroraptors. We've seen our original tiger stripe raptors that were stolen from Isla Sorna by BIOSYN. We came in contact with some Apatosauruses, our Brachiosauruses, our Dreadnoughtuses, Gallimimuses, Allosauruses, Ankylosauruses as well, with Iguanodons and Pseudoceratops. We've seen some Dimetrodons, some Parasaurolophus and Triceratops. Of course, we've seen our beautiful Quetzalcoatlus. We've seen our Sinoceratops in the last episode, and we've seen plenty Stygimolochs, some Dilophosauruses and Baryonyxes in the last episode as well. Carnotauruses in the last episode. We've seen a couple of Dimorphosdons in the last episode. We finally just stumbled across our Microceratosis, and we've seen Atrociraptors in the last episode as well. So that is our rundown of all 26 species that were residing in Biosyn's Valley, guys. Once season 2 is ready, be ready to finally see all these animals take refuge in Biosyn's Valley. And of course, we will catch all of you guys in the next episode. And until then, we will see you guys soon.